Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about being intimidated and if you're fit to be an engineer. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, isn't one fit to be a software engineer if they get intimidated by advanced concepts used in the code and they cannot understand the code during the first few passes? So what I'm reading here is that you're asking if you're good, if you're able, like fit to be a software developer, if you find code that you don't fully understand on the first few read-throughs. Well, I can tell you that this thing here is probably the most telling reason as to why I argue that in order for you to be really good at like all the things within software and to be a fully fledged, at least what I would like to call veteran software developer, no, it's not about seniority really. It is about an aspect that I think most people underestimate the importance of. Even the seniors do this, and it's something that I was so shit at for so long, and that is doing good code reviews. You see, when I was starting out, and I'm not sure if anybody else can relate to this, I hope that you can, because at least this was true for me. When I first started, the first, as I like to say, hurdle for me was to learn how to just write the code, just get it to work, to even understand what my own code was doing. And once I've got to that point, well, then I get into the habit of thinking for myself and like coming up with my own solutions and so forth. And I'm not sure if this is a trait or so forth. I think to a certain degree it is. I make this claim that usually I'm dealing with one or two types of developers, which is you have visionaries who are really good at, thinking outside of the box and having vision and creating like new solutions and stuff like that. And then you have engines who are very good at executing. They don't have vision per se, but they're very good at executing. And working with one of my coworkers who is more that type, I learned that he was extraordinarily good at spotting my mistakes in my code and so forth, whereas I very rarely even had the energy to read through his code, which was a very bad trait of mine. And so I often missed things and things like that, and in many cases I didn't fully understand, and so I kind of glossed over that because that was not enjoyable to me. It's a little bit like, as you can probably imagine, for someone who is very creative to be forced to do something that they feel is understimulating. It's not something exciting where they get to be creative, then that demotivates them from doing a good job. And what I had to learn the hard way was to actually do that, to do really high quality code reviews due to this exact thing. Because what I did was that when I didn't fully understand something or so forth, I just kind of assumed, oh, it's roughly doing this thing. I didn't actually take the time to really figure out what is this doing, like really get into the details of things. I just sort of glossed over it when I sort of thought I knew what was going on, right? And that came back and bit me on the ass more times than I care to admit. Or rather, let's just be honest here, more times than I actually know. And so what I basically did was that I started trying to, well, basically I started trying to get to a point where I actually looked at the code until I fully understood how it worked. And this is where my tips come in that I've given out before, where I have this way that I debug code, whereas I like to say I start at the top of the program. So let's say you're doing back-end work, well then the entry point is going to be the request, like the URL where the controller lives or whatever you're using, and then you sort of trace it downwards, and then you try to figure out all the different calls and stuff like that. And you see, it is still the case where I can read a piece of software and I might not fully understand what's going on, or even worse, as I said, I might think I know what's going on. And then the worst, I can't even remember how many times I have started a comment on somebody's pull request because I thought I knew what they were doing. I wrote the comment before I had checked everything out, and then I read a little bit longer, and I realized that actually that thing, they've already done that, or that thing that they did is actually making sense because I have seen some stuff now that made me question my own assumption about them. And I am very careful here because I have this tendency, I know some people do, where you can get frustrated with other people, and what is it they say, like good code is measured in what the fucks per minute. In other words, when you're reading other people's code and you don't fully know what's going on, you can get really frustrated, especially if you have a lot of opinions about how things should be done or what's a good thing, what's a bad thing, and so forth. So for me, what basically happens is that I get into my own headspace and I start thinking about how I would solve it instead of just looking at the code for what it is. And that took a lot of practice. So I would say that if you consider me a decent software developer, or that I am fit to be a software developer, then yes, I would say that you are fit, even though you might need to read the same code a few times to make sure that you know what's going on. And trust me, guys, there have been situations where, well, even today, where I look at a piece of software or like something that is going on in some whatever solution it might be, and I don't fully understand what's going on. It's not happening so much these days in the stuff that I have done for several years, but let's say if you showed me some very arcane things going on in a specific library or a framework that I'm not used to or stuff like that, of course I'm not going to fully understand why something happens a certain way or so forth. And all I can say is that at least in my opinion, doesn't really matter all that much. I give basically the same advice that I give to people who ask me, oh, am I a good software developer if I Google things or stuff like that. And what I say is, this is the real world, guys. It's not like in school. In school, you only have your test sheet, your pencil, and a calculator depending on what you're doing, right? And you have exactly one shot at doing this. And the only thing you have to draw upon is your own memory. And that is not how the real world works. The real world works, whereas you usually, unless you're working for like the government or something like that, or something highly secure, right, you usually have an internet connection. You usually have the ability to go to Stack Overflow and Google things and do some slight research and stuff like that. And the only thing that really matters is, can you deliver on expectation within a reasonable time frame? That is what matters. How you get there is less important to your employers or so forth. Like that, nobody really cares. Like, just get the results and do so without taking too long. And that's why, even if you don't fully understand something, even if you have to look things up or so forth, that's okay. It's completely normal. I mean, shit, if I didn't have the ability to look up things I didn't really fully understand in all the stuff that I work with, I would not be able to ship anything. Do you have any, like, one of my least favorite tasks to do is to configure a CI pipeline. Because every single time I do, I have to read through tons and tons of documentation and guess which configuration I need to use for my specific use case, and then I have to run that fucking pipeline 100 times over, and my coworker's wondering, like, what the hell is this guy doing? Like, he's just trying stuff out. And I go, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing, because I cannot for the life of me figure out which directory the dist folder is on the specific agent that I'm running. So what I want you to take away from this is that, yes, you are fit to be a software developer, even if you write code or if you read code that you don't fully understand on the first few tries, guys. I promise you that much. I give you a chance. Unless you are working on the Linux kernel or something like that, go and take a look at that code and see if you can figure out what that does. Because I sure as hell haven't tried anything specific there, but I'm pretty sure that I would not be able to figure out all of that stuff. Might be a few things here and there, but not all of that is going to be understandable to me. And that's not necessarily, well, it depends on what you think of my skills and so forth, that I'm not fit to be a software developer. It has to do with different types of problems, different types of coding environments, and different types of tooling, and a range of other things that can affect whether or not you actually understand what's going on. The thing, as I said, that you should use as a benchmark, whether you're good at what you do or you're fit to be a software developer, is, number one, can you get the thing to work? Is it possible? And then number two, how fast? How quickly will you do it? Because I promise you, nobody's going to care if you go in Google or Stack Overflow or you look things up or stuff like that. Everybody does it when they are on the job. I promise you, everybody does it. And that is completely normal. The thing that determines whether or not you're fit for this thing or not is, can you stick by this thing until you can deliver in a timely fashion? Because, as you can probably imagine, anybody given enough time can Google their way through and like trial and error things until like it sort of works. The thing that determines whether or not you're going to be fit to be a software developer is if your employer gets tired of waiting for you, basically. Because as long as you can ship the thing and it's sort of working, and they get it before they get tired of waiting, then yeah, you are able to do this job. And there's not much more to it. Everything else is really, really nice, but that is the bare minimum. If you can cover that, you're good. Have a great day.